Whether you're new to pool and practicing the basics, or a more experienced player performing drills to improve your shot making and positional play, the Drill Partner is perfect.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to an evening edition of Dogging It. Hope you guys are doing well and enjoying the beginning part of summer. Lord, where did the year go? I feel like it was just New Year's. Let me know in the chat if you guys can hear me and see me all right. It's probably my favorite topic of all topics to go and discuss. My favorite game by far. Talking one pocket this evening with two Hall of Famers, two legends, Steve Booth and Jeremy Jones. We got a busy week full of shows coming up. I think tomorrow we got that's right, some guy named SVB. You guys might have heard of him. We'll be having him on around lunchtime tomorrow, noon central. I got Federer scheduled for Thursday, so it's going to be interesting ahead of their match to kind of talk a little bit of one pocket with them as well, mainly talking about their rotation matchup coming up here in the next few weeks. I think it's like 2 weeks away, man. I got to get a ticket to Louisville. Also got Shane Tyree of the BEF and Sophia Mast coming on Tuesday. And then we got, I feel like I'm missing somebody. Wednesday, somebody else. They're going to be pissed. Okay. Anyway, I'll figure it out. Keep your notifications on. I'm going to bring these guys in. I kind of just ambushed them a little bit. Not too much notice, but they're pretty good as far as thinking on their toes. And that's part of the reason why I love them. In one pocket, Jeremy Jones and Steve Booth. Welcome to the show, gentlemen. How are you?
Very good.
Thank you, Mike.
Well, Jeremy, we've had you on before. Steve, it's your first time, but I want to start off with congratulations on being inducted into the Hall of Fame, man.
Thank you very much. It's kind of a strange feeling, and obviously it's not quite the same thing as a player Hall of Fame, meritorious service, but I'm proud of it, and I'll get used to it over time, I hope.
I got this stack of books up here, Steve, and yours is one of them. I haven't been. I read it whenever I first got it. It was for flights, and then now it's like I haven't been able to put it into play. It feels like in forever because I just haven't been able to play much pool lately. So yeah, it's such is life. But a gentleman who's usually behind the mic, he's on the mic right now in Double J, another Hall of Famer himself. You got a chance to hit some balls out there at Buffalo's. Have you recovered since that trip, Jeremy?
It was a pretty taxing trip. Of course, one pocket is taxing anyways when you're playing any level, especially the highest level, I think. And I'm a little beat up just because I'm dealing with some health things with the sciatic and whatnot that's been going on for a few months. But I didn't want to miss Buffalo's, and after you watch a lot and you kind of feel even at an older age you can win some matches. So I didn't want to miss it. I wanted to play against the great players, and it was a lot of fun to be there.
I feel like sitting in the chair, I see some of you guys playing on some stream matches, and it just gives me the itch. And I know Steve, you were out there, for getting inducted to the Hall of Fame. What's it like for you hanging out there throughout that week and just taking it all in, all the big names, all the big action, and crazy money?
Oh my God, Ed, Buffalo's is like one pocket heaven. Absolutely. I mean, and this year was a little extra special because there was more money, more players. You had two new players in Shane Van Boning and Joshua Filler, two of the top 5 players in the world and two of the most popular players in the world. And it was just incredible. And I watched some of Jeremy. It was beautiful. And Jeremy didn't have a cakewalk either. But I did watch. It got. I think that when he got into the money round, it was versus Scott Frost, which is kind of ironic, the two of them. And that was quite a game, wasn't it, Jeremy?
Yeah, that one started one day and finished another. But it was a long match, but it was a lot of fun. We both played to our styles, and then we got to talk a little stuff to each other here and there, and you get a little rum dum and whatnot, and you never know what might be said a little under the breath towards each other.
Yeah,
but it was
of course.
A lot of fun stuff. So yeah,
give us some of that behind the scenes, Double J. What's being whispered only amongst the fans there as you're out there competing with the guy that you spend quality time with in the booth on a regular basis?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't go crazy. I mean, some stuff from the past, may linger in there, just because we're BSing
No.
but it's mainly like, if you're in a match, if I'm playing Joshua Filler, which I wouldn't much like this anyways or something, but if I'm playing him and he gets lucky, I'm not going to let him know he got lucky, even though he knows he got lucky. Where Scott, we're at that point. He can give me that look, I can give him
Yeah.
that look, and he can respond, and I can respond back, and it's a lot of fun that way. And you never know what might be said that lasts for a long time as something funny or some cliche-ish, or you know what I mean. Yeah, I think you get it. It's nothing too extensive, but just being able to call out each other, kind of like those English guys do back when I'm working overseas. They don't back down.
I like it because Scott's full of color, and we kind of get a little glimpse of that with him being behind the mic. But I would really love to hear like the unfiltered Scott because watching his action matches over the years or being able to talk with him a little bit, whether in front of a camera or off camera, the guy's just full of stories and like he can get a little spicy at times, which I can just appreciate. So I was surprised to see you guys match up in Buffalo's. And what was it, Jeremy? Like a 10-hour match or so?
It's like 10.5 hours, and it was about, I forget what time it was. It was about 5:30 no, it was a little earlier than that. It was about
Lord help.
4. It was about 4. We finished about 7, but
AM.
AM, yeah. And but it was about 3:30 or 4, and someone was walking by, and I overheard him say, "Yeah, they got to start back their matches at 11." They weren't talking about us. They were just talking about the tournament in general at 11 a.m. And I was like, oh my, you know what I mean? Like if I win this match, of course, this is a money match, but if I win this match, I got to be back at 11, which they adjusted it to noon,
Yeah.
which I found out before I left the pool room at 7 a.m. But I actually honestly thought about changing my style right there because it was like 3-3 or 3-2 or something like that in the match. I was like, man, do I start shooting in my hole and try to get some sleep maybe? Because I've really felt like I could do pretty well in that tournament, believe it or not. I figured the furthest I stayed in it, the better I'd get.
We
But
all got a
it was just
reputation.
just a funny scenario.
We all got a reputation, Jeremy. And if I see your name on the tournament list, especially playing in one pocket, I'm thinking, okay, they're gonna be at it for a while. And so, at what point did you think, what, even if I win, I may end up losing here by that time it's 5, 6, 7 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah, I didn't really still anticipate. I mean, once you're that knee deep in it, what are you going to do?
Right.
I mean, I was praying that it would go a little quicker at that point, realizing because when you start playing one pocket, unless you're really looking at the clock or you're on your phone or something like that, time passes incredibly fast.
It
You
does.
you won't realize you're playing 6-7 hours already, and so it was a money match. I figure I'd take my chances from there, but I did only get 2 hours sleep. So I was hoping to get about 4 at least before playing SVB, but it just so happened I only got about 2 hours.
What was it like for you, Steve, being able to sweat it all? Did you have some late nights, early mornings, and like, are you preparing mentally for the grind that is being a fan out there at Buffalo's in New Orleans?
Yeah, I have a harder time. Once it gets to like 1 o'clock in the morning or so,
Yeah.
I start to fade. So, Jeremy, I have to admit, I faded around when I think it was like maybe the third or fourth game you two had, and all 15 balls went up table fairly early. I was like, oh shit, I can't make it much longer for that. But that was impressive. That I was really impressed with your. The next morning, I checked in. Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was
it's
one of those matches we didn't sell out on the break, but we didn't particularly break devastatingly. You know what I mean? In any manner. So
yeah,
so it's easier to start to get the balls out of position a little, because the break's not so heavy when you don't break
yeah.
them super well. So
We we could really see as a spectator, we could see you guys cared about that match a lot. You were putting everything into it, and that was part of the reason why those balls were going up table because you weren't going to take any chances. And it was there got to be a point where the ball. It's just too risky with the ball spread out. The only safe place is to drop back down to the foot
yeah,
of the table.
once a good player makes one type of shot that does a certain things to a few of the balls, the player behind him is either going to be risky doing something else besides following suit and doing the same thing. And
Yeah.
so that's just kind of how we played it. And it was fun though, great match. And there were
And
some
you're
people that stayed
comfortable.
there the entire time. I couldn't believe it. So
Yeah, and you're comfortable with that off table game. You mentioned you played Shane Van Bonen next, and from watching the matches and watching Shane, he doesn't particularly like those up table games. And I see he has his own strategy. It's really different from most players, where he works at not sending the balls upstairs.
well, I think Shane, when he looks at one pocket, which is much different 9 ball, I think he will be one to evaluate. Hey, I don't want to play 7 hour match, 7 hour match.
Yeah,
Like I want to keep the pressure on, almost like when he pushes out playing 9 ball. He's the most unique push out player ever after the break because he always wants to keep the pressure on you. He figures he can handle the pressure better than you can. That's what he's betting on,
yeah.
and he's usually right. So
He's got his own unique approach to one pocket, and I mean, he's actually a pretty experienced one pocket player, right? So,
no, I think he moves just fine,
yeah.
and he
It's
executes phenomenally well.
Of course. And yeah, I like watching him play because it does give you a different perspective. You know, it's
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
I couldn't agree more with you boys, and that was something that I can really appreciate watching a tournament like Buffalo's, and really the Derby for that matter, because you'll get some guys that you won't get to see very often go and play, and you can really just appreciate the game from a bunch of different angles. And one pocket more than any game, I feel like I can just walk up to the table and just start appreciating what's going on once I start watching these guys, move balls around because of the strategy behind it. But I want to ask you guys, going into it and seeing all these bigger names, did you guys think realistically that they had a chance, or I guess what chance, if any, do they have to snap off this event, given the conditions out there and the level of talent that's out there, and the longer race for that matter in race to 5 at Buffalo's?
Steve, you can start us off.
okay. I was really looking at that. And honestly, I thought Josh Filler in particular might struggle a little bit in the Buffalo's environment because it's not really something that the European players in particular are familiar with, that kind of environment with the gambling, well worn cloth on a lot of the tables. It's just quite different. But Josh was a smart bastard. He came almost a week early and he jumped right into action. I think Joe put him in action. I mean, he played Tony. I'm not sure why Tony took that on, but he did. And he played Little John with Robbie Langford in a 1-against-2.
I think I saw that on
Uh,
there too. Yeah.
I believe that was like a 7-hour match. Josh came up loser on that, but he learned so much. But mainly, he got so comfortable in the environment that he was ready once the tournament started. That's what I saw.
What do you say, Jeremy?
Yeah, I mean, first off, I was thinking about it earlier. When you look at any of those guys that are winning those tournaments that we called 9 ball players, and maybe they're from another part of the world originally, or still are, um, all those guys are always in form. So number one, they're
Yeah.
in form. I don't care what game they're playing. So that to me is almost like the base of anything. If you're going to tournament against great players, and then I also think, as far as Josh is concerned, Josh has never been a ton, in my eyes, anyways, not a guy that complains a whole lot. And he doesn't get like negative. He doesn't get bent. Uh,
Yeah.
He's just real strong-minded with that kind of stuff. So when it came to the conditions, he's just kind of like, hey, we're all playing under the same conditions, and I feel like I hit the ball better than you. Now, as far as to Steve's point,
Yeah.
going there early, and whether he'd have played $50 one pocket or $5,000 one pocket, just to get one pocket under his belt for a few days, in a town that has plenty of good movers and great players. That was obviously a smart move, whether he thought of it or his crew did or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I think those guys sold fairly correctly as far as being the guys that were going to sell for the most. I got to go with the guys that are going to be informed, the guys that are going to make the ball hand at a high rate, because that's going to mean something at some point. And but but I thought Tony was as impressive to me as anyone all week, in my opinion. The way he played and his draw, and you could see he was really sticking to the game to try and win, which was really impressive. And that to me was the way he was going to win.
Yeah.
I mean,
I agree with you
uh,
about Tony. He's just super solid.
And not to take anything away from Josh. I mean, Josh was, but Tony really, maybe his first round draw against a real dangerous Billy Thorpe really helped. He won that 5-1, I think it was. Then he got a little softer with Greg Hogue, was it? And then he picked back up playing a lot of great players, but the way he moved and stayed patient, really patient, trying to run the ball. I thought a lot better. I thought Tony was impressive, just about as much as the guy who won it.
Let me ask you guys a question on the note of the Calcutta, because I'm sweating it from the house, and I look at value. You know, that's number one. You know, a lot of guys want to buy the big names and have a nice trophy and you know all that, but no, honest to God, though, what did you guys think as far as some players that were valued? Because you mentioned Billy before. I saw the draw with Tony. Seeing him, I think was around 10 grand or so relative to some of these other buyers. I thought that was a great buy at 10 grand. Now I know he didn't have the best tournament out there, but what were some value picks that you guys saw throughout that Calcutta?
Ooh, yeah.
I thought Skyler. What was Skyler? Was he 16,000 or was he?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought that was compared to what the other guys went. Just because Skyler's kind of know-how, he's had a lot of that one pocket under his belt now. I think those conditions help him a little more. I thought that was a really good value. I thought there were a lot of good values, to be honest. They all had some kind of argument for what they went for.
Yeah. Obviously, in retrospect, Devin Petit was a good value.
He was this year's Shane Wolford, it feels like, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually went a little cheaper than Devin. I only went for value.
You did. Yeah, you were a good value too, Scott. I mean, Jeremy.
Yeah. Actually, lost Hill to Devin. She fell asleep at the wheel there about mid-match, and then he played real good finish.
He played real sound. Yeah, he didn't let the situation intimidate him. That's what I saw with him.
Do you feel like some of these guys who might go for more coin? I mean, I think we saw 1 year where Dennis went 2 and out, being one of the picks of the litter. But do you feel like these heavy Calcutta numbers put like more stress and more pressure on these guys, especially the bigger names?
What do you think, Jeremy?
I mean, I guess you could let it get in your head. Some of those guys, you know.
Double J, if you can, Jeremy, I'm gonna send you to the back for a second. If you can just refresh for me, because it's kind of cutting in and out on me a little bit. If you want to just hit the refresh and then come back in, and I'll let you on in, and I'll kind of pick Steve's brain here for a little bit on that note. Steve, what do you got to say on that?
Can you remind me the question?
Yeah, I was saying, do you think some of these bigger name players maybe will have a little bit more pressure just given the Calcutta numbers?
Well, I think that for a newcomer like Filler, I wondered about that, you know, but apparently it didn't bother him. And the others, honestly, if they're going to go that high in the Calcutta, they're already used to it. They've dealt with it before in increments, you know, maybe not quite at that level. I don't know if Shane has ever gone for 46,000 in a Calcutta before, but he's had the same backer, right? John Mars for like 20 years, I think. I remember him for the Executive West at the Derby City over there. So I think Shane's probably pretty comfortable with it. And it's more like the new players that would probably struggle with it, or like Filler. But obviously it didn't bother Filler.
Yeah, I mean, I think like looking at it, and when you start analyzing players, I feel like bringing up the pressure is a big aspect of it. But we've seen Josh in big money matches, and guys like Josh and Shane, while I'm sure they can get up to some degree when it comes to the money, like their competitive spirit is what, you know, makes that fire burn more than anything. If you talk to them, you know, it's like they just hate to lose. You know, they hate to lose, and so that kind of sting of losing a match, I feel like, is more inspiration than anything else. And don't get me wrong, I'm sure taking home an extra whatever it was, $150 back home is going to be worth it. But it's just like, man, they're ultra competitive. And Jeremy, you've been around these guys playing for big titles and big spots. And would you agree that it's more of like, it's not so much the cash versus like they want it, man?
speak from my own experience. That's just how I've always been all like.
Well, we might still be having a hard time with your signal here, Jeremy. Maybe try rebooting if you can, and then I'll try doing the same thing, bringing you on here, bringing you on back over here. Let me see. Let me just send you to the back here. Sorry about that, Steve. Lots of other one pocket to kind of get into, and I want to pick your brain a little bit on Alex, because Alex was someone that was probably an argument to go top 3 or 4 in that Calcutta. Always a favorite, despite his tournament performances over the last couple of years. But I want to get your take on Alex not being there, and what were the thoughts of some of the players and buyers and just one pocket enthusiasts, him being out of that tournament.
Yeah, it was a big disappointment, I'd say, not having Alex there, because, certainly in like the challenge matches, nobody's beaten Alex yet. I mean, he's still the top lion, whatever you want to call it, until somebody knocks him off. Even though right now I think it's been a little while since he's been in one. Honestly, I saw him at Derby City in January. I thought it was the first time he didn't look like 16 or 19 years old. He finally looks like an adult. I hope that's not a bad sign for him. It took a long time.
Yeah.
It's amazing. The killer pixie there. He's finally, I think, outgrown the killer pixie. He's just a lion now. No more killer pixie.
Well, without him having been in action a little bit, I know the last few times we've seen him, I think he's given Tony, like, what was it, 9-8 or 10-8. The last couple of times they've played something decent. But with your eye test and the amount of one pocket you watch and the different styles of one pocket, do you think Alex is still at the top of that mountain, or do you think that there's a couple of guys that
I think
realistically beat him even?
I think it's going to be tough, because you can see sometimes he's got glasses on now. I mean, and that's one of the big things that affects players as they get a little bit older. Their vision. There's just, you got laser for some things, but there's other conditions that just laser isn't going to work. And I don't have any idea what's going on with Alex and his eyes. It's just that I have seen him with glasses in the last few years, now and then. Maybe he doesn't play with them all the time, but it's vision is one of those things. He may be leveling off as a player, and these other guys, like Filler and Gorst, are both like definitely on the up and up. Tony is Tony, and he's just a super talented one pocket player that we're blessed to be able to watch on a regular basis. And despite his physical difficulties, he seems to do real well in the tournament environment. I mean, he came in second there, and I don't know, the last tournament that was like a week before, I believe he won it. I'm not sure. There was another tournament like a week or two before.
Okay, let me put it like this, Steve. Alex versus Federer, Filler, Shane. Are you betting against Alex on either of those matches? And if so, who?
That is a tough one.
If it were to happen.
Yeah. No, I would not bet against Alex, except possibly Filler. And I wouldn't do, if Filler, I'd want Filler to play a little bit more one pocket, like give him more time to prep, right?
Right.
I don't see it. Alex is just so experienced at one pocket. We'll see what happens with Filler, because this he played great at, and he focused on one pocket for a week. But I mean, he's off to these other obligations around the world, literally. And one pocket is not going to be a part of much of that. If he focused on one pocket, I'd bet on Filler. But in the meantime, I'd be sticking with Alex. Alex, he's got those top-notch execution skills, and his knowledge and moving is second to none. He doesn't give the opponent much to shoot at. He really limits them. And then when he gets a shot, he makes the most of it.
What about Federer? I feel like that's more realistic to happen versus the other two, at least right now. Or when I say right now, I mean like in the next year or so.
I love Federer. He's embraced one pocket. I mean, here he is. What is he, like 24? And he's absolutely embraced one pocket. It seems like, I don't know if it's his favorite game, but it's got to be right up there, because he seems to look for one pocket, and that's one of the things I look for in terms of whether a player embraces the game. and he's still in the learning curve, but his execution is amazing. I'd probably give Alex the edge, but only for another year or two. Then,
It
because Federer is positively working on the game. We don't know if Filler will, but Federer is.
Yeah, that's a fair point for sure. And I feel like these young phenoms are just such sponges. They just absorb so well. Double J, if you can hear me, check your camera settings for me, my man. But yeah, they just absorb so much and they can adjust as needed. I feel like. Plus, it doesn't hurt the fact that they are in their early to mid 20s either, Steve. Especially playing these longer sets or longer matches, or
Yeah.
in this case, long tournament. You see, Double J's getting his stuff situated. But on the note of that, look, I'm going to try to get Alex on the show. I know he's out in China. Federer, we're going to get him on Thursday. Tomorrow, we'll get on SVB. The SVB one is a little tough for me because Shane can be a little temperamental. It's about how engaged Shane is in the match. And I don't know if he would even consider taking on Alex even, but if he would, I'm sure there'd be a fair amount of action on either side of it. Now, Federer and Filler are a couple of different animals just because of that age factor and where one player, like you mentioned, is going one direction and the other one's going another, just for the sake of being in their mid 40s versus early 20s. But I'd probably, if the matches were to happen, I'd probably bet on the other side of Alex. And it's crazy to think about because Alex has been the number one and so well respected, and for good reason. No one's been able to beat him, and I get that. And until the guy gets knocked off, he's still going to be the number one because he's still in the swing of things. But watching these young Europeans, man, there's something else. Their cue ball is phenomenal. Their long pots are great, man. Their banking is phenomenal. They're really skilled in handling high pressure, just fighting for so many titles, let alone the fact that both of them love action and love the money as well, Steve. And I feel like in
Yeah.
Federer's case, that's one of the reasons why I feel like in Federer's case, he's had to kind of like adapt to one pocket as far as taking it on because the rotation action isn't exactly overflowing, at the moment for him because nobody really wants to bark up that tree because they know what a monster he is. Um,
Yeah.
and so getting these guys involved in the one pocket side of it, I think is great. I love like the mix of it all. I love bringing in this fresh blood because for me, it just further it puts a bigger spotlight on a game that I already love, Steve. That I just
Yeah.
thoroughly enjoy and appreciate, and it's great seeing these different types of players that you can have a debate or that kind of barbershop talk as far as who you think will do good versus another. But this tournament right here at Buffalo's, man, it kind of gave us everything we wanted and then some, I feel like.
It did. And, there was, when you think about it, there was, there was Filler, Gorst. I know Gorst is in U.S. now, but he's not originally. Mickey Krause, is another young player that has really embraced the game of one pocket.
Right.
And he's on the rise. Those are three I'm thinking of that were at Buffalo's. But
Yeah.
one pocket is definitely, it's in a great place right now. It seems like it. There's a lot of big one pocket tournaments, none bigger than Buffalo's, but they're almost like a little circuit. There's at least a half a dozen.
There is. And
Good
I
money.
kind of like I take these like standard table one pocket tournaments with a grain of salt, because and even Derby for that matter, because they're playing on most time 4.5 inch pockets, maybe 4.25 with new cloth, which can open it up. And some of these guys have more experience, let's say, playing on those conditions, or the guys who are going to be more what's the phrase? Like they'll get more TV table time because they're more name players,
Yeah.
just like in general, and that'll give them an edge for sure, or at least more time behind the wheel. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And the TV tables in general are usually, they got newer cloth, more lights, so they're a little drier conditions.
Yeah.
They play a little looser than the tables out in the corners of the room, anywhere you go.
Give me your thoughts on where your one pocket rankings are right now, Steve. Give me your top, let's say 5-6 players.
Oh boy, that's a tough one. Yeah, you did give me a little heads up on this.
I did. I didn't give Jeremy one. We're still going to try to put mine in, but I
prepared
did
a
give you a heads
tiny
up.
bit. I still put Alex at the top because nobody's knocked him off,
Fair.
And maybe he's going to keep ducking in China, so nobody's going to get a chance.
Ducking. You know what? When I get him on, Steve, if I get him on, I'm going to use that word. I'm going to say Steve Booth, the Hall of Famer. No, I'm kidding.
No, that's not. And he's been trying to call out. You mentioned him. He and Shane. He's been trying to call out Shane for like a while. And supposedly Shane's starting to listen a little bit. So maybe that is going to happen. That would be exciting.
I hope so.
So I got Alex.
Okay.
And these are really not in any particular order, but I did start.
Oh, no. Time out, Steve. We need them in order. We want to.
Okay.
We're trying to put them on.
I'm going to give them to you in order, but I'm not putting a number next to any.
All right.
I started with Alex.
Okay. I like it.
And then I got Gorst.
All right.
Yeah. And I got Filler. And but Filler, I mean, he's going to be number one if he sticks with the damn game. You can see, watching him this past week, his moving was really excellent for somebody that you think, okay, he doesn't play that much one play. It doesn't matter. He controls the cue ball really well. The other thing is his straight back banks, his table length bank, anything that he's got to do table length, he does better than every other player in the world.
Razor sharp, Steve.
That's a huge advantage. Do you want to send the balls up table against Filler to try to slow it down? Why? The guy's going to bank better than you are with the balls up there. I don't know that strategy would work. I didn't see anybody try it. Okay, Filler, welcome back, Jeremy.
Hopefully it's working.
Spot for my 10.
It's
my top
good
10.
So hard.
Oh, I missed it.
Would you like me to keep going, Mike?
Steve's got Alex at number 1, Federer at number 2. Then he's on to Filler. He ain't even mentioned Shane yet, who got third place out there at Buffalo's. I'm assuming he's on deck here pretty soon, though.
Yeah, I got Tony next. I mean, he's just so damn solid.
Okay.
He's not the 800 Fargo that these other guys are, but his execution, you watch him run balls, it seems the only weakness I see is more like the little nuances in position and maybe breaking open clusters and things like that limit him from getting 8 and out when somebody like Filler or Alex or Shane is going to get 8 and out. But Tony's no slouch at pocketing the ball once he gets a shot either. I got your Shane.
Okay.
Right after. And I mean, he's just so solid on everything. No, I guess Shane would be 5. He had Tony 4. I mean, I put Orculo in, although he's over there. We don't really know how he's playing. His one pocket has probably slipped a bit. But when he left,
he was number 2, easily number 2.
Yeah, when he was left, he was up there. Nobody really wanted a piece of him even.
No, I feel like that match with Dennis that Dennis versus Alex match was the matchup that everybody really wanted to see for so long, and it's a shame that things happened the way they did. As a one pocket fan, who knows what version of Dennis we'll get if he does come back to the States, if and when that time does happen. But
because even with Bustamante, who was only gone
exactly,
2 or 3 years, he didn't come back at the level that he left. That made it that took a toll on him. Anyway, I've got I guess it would be 7 and 8. I've got Roberto Gomez and Evan Lunda. I probably put Lunda's his execution is he hits the ball so purely when he's on. I mean, really, he's got a pure hit. He can take on a shot that nobody, like the back cut of the spot shot out of the wrong corner pocket in the back, to win a tournament like last year or the year before, I forget.
And Scott,
there's not too many players that can do that, but Lunda can and has for big money. Then I got Bergman in there. Again, he's another one. There's a couple of these guys that, I mean, he can obviously play. He just doesn't get out. So I can't really overlook
it's
him.
Hard. It's hard to put the radar gun on him when you don't. I feel like there's not enough of a sample size. And I agree with you, like on the Bustamante and Orcolo arguments. Justin is hard. I see him play Tony. I see the Little John match was great. I loved it. I feel like that was a really tough game. The match with Tony could have gone either way. I'd love to see a rematch for more money because I feel like Tony would be more invested in it. Take it somewhere.
Tony would like that.
Tony would really like that, and I'd probably be betting on Tony.
Yeah.
If that matchup were to happen. But Bergman's is so hard. Jeremy, I want to get your take. We brought up the fact that Alex wasn't there. What's your top 5 players looking like right now in terms of one pocket?
With Alex in form, because he's not been over here playing the one pocket, not as much 9 ball, but he's obviously got a cue in his hand quite a bit at the moment, and the recent. You got to probably put him number one. I don't think it's like a huge margin by any means. I really don't. I think if he's off at all, he gets beat by a number of guys. Something went.
Well, there you are.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, we got you back.
Okay. I don't know what happened. I don't know if that was I didn't touch nothing. So, but yeah, I got him.
Good.
I got him number one. I mean, maybe I don't necessarily put Federer right there. I don't think at number 2. I really don't. I mean, you talk about a sample size, a little more sample size, and we might have Filler ahead of Federer. I don't know.
Really?
Maybe. And don't get me wrong. I don't know if and the only reason being is I really like Shane's game as well. I think if they just like Tony when he played Shane those matches, when someone steps up and plays Shane something that's going to take a little while and get him invested, I think he's as good a number 2 as any of them. So just to put it out there, right? I mean, and change it up a little bit. I might put SPB. And
I don't know what's up with your auto double J. Maybe see if you can change the audio source, man. Maybe if you pick up from your computer, because it's a little glitchy. Steve, are you hearing the same way as I am?
Yeah, he's like coming in and out a little bit.
Maybe try to restart the computer, double J, if you can, one more time, and then we'll try to bring you on in. See if that'll kind of back when when I was younger, we used to just do this thing where we messed around with a piece of foil on the antenna. You know what I mean? And then make sure that the cable signal came in a little clearer. Once you got it set, who's ever touching the foil, don't move.
Don't touch.
Don't move. Jeremy brings up some interesting points, especially in regards to Shane. And I do feel like players have different levels of how competitive they are. Tony comes to mind in terms of what's that level of effort like, and Shane, whether or not he's engaged, can be a little different. And I thought Shane was going to lose early on in Buffalo's. I think it was to Evan, which was his first round matchup. And I thought Evan had Shane where Shane was about this close to checking out. Because I've seen it on Shane whenever he's playing rotation, where he can kind of be slumped in the chair and can kind of just a little sluggish or shruggish, whatever you want to call it. And I thought Evan had him by the balls a little bit, but Shane ended up squeaking away with one, ended up parlaying that into a 3rd place finish. But this is why I love one pocket, though, is just the debates that you can have before you actually get to see these matchups. On to Jeremy's point, I'd probably put Shane number 2, and I don't think any of those guys would like playing him if Shane was engaged. But if he's not engaged, it's like, man, 2 through 4 are tough, Steve. Federer, Filler, Shane, and it's no disrespect to Tony, but seeing Shane beat Tony is why I would probably bump Tony to number 5, personally. But boy, I tell you what, if they were to really have, let's say, like a 50,000 a man buy-in or something, there wouldn't be too many guys that would be willing to throw up the money, and I'd probably be betting against somebody with the European background in Federer or Filler, if I'm being honest with you. They're super tough. Those races, no matter if they're longer or shorter, are going to be in their favor, I feel like, because of the age and endurance factor. Let me see if I can get Jeremy back in here. Give me 1 second. Double J, can you hear me? Nope. Okay, we'll try to send him on back. Talk
about Shane's endurance, that race to 120 with Gorst. Gorst was out in front every day, but then the last hour and a half, which was like at 3 or 4 in the morning, it was all Shane Van Boening. The guy has crazy endurance.
He, you know what? For being, I think now he's 41, he really does. But it's crazy because, logic says you bet on the younger guy first, Steve. If it's going late into the evening, I'm betting on the younger guy more often than not. Obviously, Shane's got more experience, but man, I was there in Louisville during that Shane and Federer match, and it was unbelievable the way that you would just see the scales tip. Where once 12 o'clock hit ish, right? Once Federer sat down for a little bit, Shane just found a different gear, and then by default just kind of put Federer into a coma,
Yeah,
because it was in those last 2 hours every single day where
yeah.
where Shane ended up winning, and I'm gonna pick his brain on that tomorrow, and the same with Federer a little bit later on this week. But it's such an interesting uh, topic. Give me your thoughts on Tony, and just kind of where he's at in one pocket. How tough is he? How dangerous is he? And what's the future looking like for T Rex?
Well, Tony, in a way, he's a bit of a throwback, like Ronnie Allen or something like that, because like he really is a one pocket specialist. I mean, not
Yeah,
that he can't play other games,
right.
obviously he can, but I mean, he's really a one pocket specialist, and he has so many shots in his repertoire, way more than pretty much any player. And people say Tony doesn't practice. Well, I know Tony practiced real hard for years and years growing up. And you see some of those wild shots he plays in one pocket. I'll bet you pretty near every single one of those, he's played it. Like he's set it up
Yeah,
and he's played it. He already figured it out quite a long time ago. He's really a special, and that's why he's so great to watch, because you're just watching uh, all this one pocket knowledge and creativity. It's you don't get that with any of the other players to that level. That's what I'll say about Tony.
yeah. I
And
couldn't.
somehow, despite his health, look at how well he does in these tournaments.
Yeah, I mean, if you, I brought up the debate as far as standard table like standard table tournaments versus like Buffaloes, where I feel like it's more one pocket focused. And Tony, to his credit, I mean, the guy can snap off a 4.5 inch pocket tournament and then go off and be in the finals of Buffaloes, all with, why you said, dealing with some medical issues that are tough for him. And if you see Tony out of the tournament, you'll see him kind of walking around a little gingerly, and you can tell like it's tough on him. He's not putting on an act, or he's not bullshitting anybody, and so for him to be able to have that type of performance, number one, was inspiring. But I like it because Tony's not willing to give it up. Tony's
No.
gonna, and it's special to see when you have that mix of Tony being inspired versus that creativity that you were just talking about. Because I love watching Tony play. I love seeing him, like he'll come up with stuff where I'm just like, I mean, I'm just sitting back there and I'm cheering like I would be at a baseball game or a basketball game, Steve. Whenever I see some of his selections, and more importantly the execution, because I'm like, where did that even come from? And
Yeah,
but it's by
you need
design.
you need the replays for watching him,
Yeah, yeah,
and you need it for the other players too. Absolutely, but I'm going to mention one thing. I'm going to bring in another little angle that is not an answer to the question you just gave me, but
sure.
I want to mention the One Pocket Hall of Fame, because the reason I am is Tony. Tony is an example of why we have a One Pocket Hall of Fame. We started it because of people like Ronnie Allen, Grady Matthews, that are one pocket specialists. They're not going to ever be in the BCA Hall of Fame. So
Right.
Tony's a living example, right in his prime, of that kind of thing. That he's not going to be in the BCA Hall of Fame, but we've got a Hall of Fame for him, and he earned it,
Fir-
like Jeremy Jones.
First
Now,
ballot Hall of
Jeremy
Fame for Tony
might
for sure.
make the BCA Hall of Fame, but Scott Frost, Tony Chohan, they got a tough crack at the BCA Hall of Fame. So, and that really is why we have the One Pocket Hall of Fame. There's my little digression.
I like it. I like it, Steve. Jeremy, can you hear us all right?
Man, I went to the phone. I hope this works.
It works, and I can hear you. I can hear you perfectly. Now, I want to
Okay,
just
great.
right off the bat kind of get you up to speed here. Let me ask you the same question I asked Steve. Federer, Filler, Shane against Alex. Are you betting against Alex on either one of those? And if so, who?
Uh,
And I'm talking
well,
like a healthy race, race to 21, 28, whatever, 30, whatever you want. Like, not a race to 2 or 3 or 5.
I mean,
some might say it's apples and oranges, but I don't think it is. I think you could relate that to like a Bergman beating Tony not long ago with that small sample size you were talking about.
Yeah.
Even though y'all couldn't hear me, I was listening, by the way.
There you go.
Ah,
As much as I could without panicking too much. But yeah, yeah. I mean, any of those guys could win for sure. I think the one that would come to mind to win easiest is Filler, just because it's almost like, I love the way Tony played. There's one shot, and again, he's going to live going down the way he played because he executed really well. But in that the last game, when he decided to put the pressure on and go the end rail and leave that 13 ball to cut in, that I knew Filler was going to shoot at it, even if he was froze on the rail, being able to go into the pack there. But Filler's the type that's just got the nerve to do it. He understands how to win when he needs to win at the game and who he's playing to maybe make that decision. So I think it would be Filler to me that would upset Alex a little more before the other two.
Would you still like if so I guess you would be betting if you're gonna go and put a couple bills on it, you'd be betting against the other side then on Filler versus Alex.
No, I wouldn't say that. Now, I mean, no, that's why I said
That's what I
Alex
got
is.
out of it.
No, I thought you said which one could really, logistically,
Oh no,
which
well, I
one
mean, like,
would you maybe bet against him? Like
yeah.
there's a possible, or maybe not bet on Alex necessarily,
Look,
the whole
I'm
household
not
and
saying
farm
that
and all
like
that, but
look, Alex is great, and I know he's a monster. I know why he's regarded as number one for years. He's been the number one, and it's been like undisputed, And I think even if you were to ask the greats like a Shane, which I have, and even Dennis for that matter, even a few years ago, whenever that debate was more up in the air, it was without question. I just feel like, and I hope to get Alex on to kind of have this discussion with them further, but I feel like that gap's kind of closed a little bit over the last couple of years. Federer's closed that gap. Seeing Josh, I know it's not a whole lot that we've seen. If that match were to go and happen, and number one, those two should go play each other first before they even fuck with Alex. But just because I feel like they'd be leaving some money on the table otherwise. But I'd probably be betting against those young Europeans, man. Shane's tough. Not to say that he can't, because I certainly believe that he can. It's just a matter of if the bet's right for Shane, and if Shane can stay in that like 10, 12-hour grinding double J Calderon style of one pocket where like he's willing to play the game, then that's wherever I would take Shane. Otherwise, I feel like Alex would go and beat him. But call me crazy. I don't know.
no, I agree. I agree with you that the gap is definitely closed. That's for sure. Um, and Alex, I think, is probably hitting the ball as well as he's hit the ball in a long time. I think it's gonna. I think when it comes to SVB and Alex, I think Alex would play a little more mentally on SVB, a little more taxing on SVB
Yeah.
than he would against Filler and Federer. I think Filler and Federer, it's just whether that's 20 years of respect of knowing Alex a little more than those other guys have known Alex and seen what he's done,
Completely
and
fair.
maybe dismantled SVB just like he's dismantled every player in the world playing one pocket before.
Well, he's got
So
some scar tissue from Alex, because
well, yeah,
they've
and
done.
hey, even if you hadn't played him, you're going to have a little scar tissue if you look over and
Yep.
you got to play Alex Pagaline.
Right.
It's just going to be there. So, but I agree with that. I think that assessment is really good overall.
Sky, I feel like, and I want to get y'all's take on it. I feel like Sky is like right on the cusp of just kicking down the one pocket wall and just can really be like within that same conversation. Now, I don't think he's there yet, but I feel like if he were to be a little bit more, I don't want to say engaged, but just maybe dedicated to one pocket a little bit more, he's got all the right skill set, age, execution, enough knowledge to be able to defend himself, along with the exceptional banking ability to really give any of these guys a run for their money. Again, he's a little bit on the ways off, but I want to get your take on where he's at. And Steve, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, I love watching Sky play. He's juggling a lot. Yes,
Yes.
He's out of his 20s now. He's married. I think he's got a kid, right?
He's got two.
Two.
Yeah.
Two.
Yeah.
Okay, two. That's a handful.
Yeah. Yeah.
That comes into play. I think for Sky, it might just be that trying to work that much more one pocket into a life that's really full and wonderful with other things. I just don't know if he can do that. He something would have to give, and I would hate to be the guy to suggest that he give up, less of this or less of that to add
Right.
more one pocket. But he's got the talent, that's for sure. To your point.
What do you say, Jay?
Yeah, I mean, I always talk about it. Nine balls, comes up on the big table. These funny little situations and shots, just because of him playing all that 7-foot pool, that you get these unique situations through the years. And I think he's got a very keen mind. Um,
Agreed.
he's if he would have been around like I was around Houston, of course, growing up playing pool, and that was a big one pocket city, kind of like New Orleans. But if he was in the right setting where he could play locally, to where he could start to fall in love with it more, I think he likes it. Kind of like he's in the closet about it. Kind of like he's on the verge of really
Yeah,
liking
yeah.
it. But if he had a group of guys that played that could defend themselves and he could learn some things from a little more often, I think again he would accelerate a little more, and I think you'll see him win one of these big ones.
Yeah, he's I love watching and seeing him like execute these one pocket style shots, or the way that he kind of analyzed the table, to your point, when I see him playing these big like matchroom style events, because he's got the creativity there, and we've seen him play two-way shots or protect the cue ball or whatever, and I'm just like, and when he shows up to these events, he always does really well. I don't care what
Yeah.
type of one pocket tournament it is, and I think his skill set is great for it. Again, Steve, you made a lot of really great points as far as the juggling act there. On the note of Buffalo's, boys, I want to just ask you: do you think like this is about as close to a one pocket world championship as we're going to get?
I would say yes to that.
Yeah, something that back whenever I played the U.S. Open one pockets the first times in the '90s, it was really always a class field of 64 players, and I thought that was probably the greatest one pocket tournaments I'd ever played in, along with some of those legends and stuff that were in the '90s.
Yeah.
Um, but I'd said to some people, and this was before Alex had to not, had to pull the string on being able to come, but um, I thought it was going to maybe be the greatest one pocket tournament ever. Just prize money, setting, um, very tough conditions, races to 5, which back in the day that U.S. Open one pocket was like that as well, um, which I think sets up for. I mean, yeah, you could slap. A lot of people slap world titles on a lot of things pretty quickly, right? But I think that if you talk to the one pocket world, you could certainly slap something on here besides just Buffaloes.
I mean, it may not have any official title in terms of one pocket world championship, but for all intents and purposes, it's a one pocket world championship. And seeing the way that this event has grown, and like the excitement that you get for the first 3 months of the year. Derby kind of gives us a little bit, a little taste, and you'll see these little regional one pocket tournaments give us a little taste here and there, but it feels like there's all. And I've never been to Buffalo. It's the one tournament that I've been wanting to go to that I haven't been. But I always feel like the buzz and excitement every year just grows. And then let alone the fact you have, a $500,000 Calcutta and action day and night and all these things. And look, a guy like Alex, he shows up next year, all the talk's going to be on can he beat Filler, and what that buzz is going to be like. Federer, is he going to be able to snap one of these things off? And how determined that guy is once he's get his mindset on something. It's a great tournament, and I love seeing the who's who of players. Then you got dark horses like a Mickey, like Steve said, Roberto Gomez, Evan Lunda, guys who have won this tournament in years past, who are just they can catch a gear. Then you have Cinderellas like Poteet or Wolford over the last couple of years. It's like that's why I love one pocket. Like everything that makes sense sometimes just doesn't make sense after you play a guy like Jeremy Jones for 10 and a half hours.
Huh.
Grind,
Well, I mean,
grinding you
I
down.
think it just says a lot about the game itself that we all know how you got to play to win a 9-ball tournament. It's a
Right.
it's a it's a fairly small group of things that you have to do to win the tournament, along with getting fortunate, which is any pool tournament, you got to get fortunate. But there's obviously different ways to win. and in one pocket and different ways. Once you start winning that way and sticking with it, we've seen different champions now. Even as great as Alex is, he didn't win it every year in these races to 5 tough conditions when he
Yeah.
played. It was still other guys because they
Right.
stuck to what they were doing. And that's the beauty of a good setup tournament. You can actually experience that and then kind of start to believe in it and maybe roll with it and win the tournament.
To your point, Mike, the big money at Buffalo's and the races to 5 and the high caliber of players, yeah, that's I'd put it at the top also. There's more players at Derby, but it's quite a mix. You know, there's a lot of amateurs in there,
Right.
and it's only races to 3, which is quite a big difference.
Completely agree. Completely agree. I mean, the endurance factor of Derby, like in and of itself, is difficult enough as it is, but like just from more of that like purest one pocket standpoint, that's why I love watching Buffaloes more than anything. I mean, I'm glued to the edge of my seat. I can't get enough of it, you know, and I want to see more of these matches. I want to see, like, listen, as much as a 10.5 hour match can be brutal, like I want to see what gets you to, you know, hour number 8 and hour number 9, you know, because that's amazing to me, you know. And so the level of grind is second to none. Let me ask you this, Jeremy, because you've seen a lot of you know, players from around the world. Do you feel like one pocket's on the verge of growing globally, and if so, what will that do to like the landscape of the game?
Um, yeah, I mean, I think it's going to grow. It can't go anything but up, I think, overall. And we've seen that in the last several years. I think now there's some things now these other players, they got to stay disciplined into the rotation side of things, because that's how they make, you know, 90% of their year, right?
Right.
Overall. It's just how it is. But I think it will grow. I think Buffalo's is going to grow. I want to make sure I threw that out there. I think it's time, like the Derby, maybe to add another day to that tournament, just to
I
make
think they
things.
did add a day like a year or so ago.
Yeah, I
They
think
added
it's time
a
to
day.
add another day to that tournament, because I
Yeah,
mean they had plans to have 45 players. Now it ended up only 36 or 37 because some
yeah.
people had to drop out. But I think it'll continue to grow. I think with players seeing it and people just getting the experience of playing, I think you're going to see a lot more players in the future. And yeah, to answer your question though, I think one pocket, but I mean it's going to take effort. You got to keep at it. You can't just rely on Buffaloes or the Derby and things like that to continue to make the game grow. I know onepocket.org does some things
I was
overseas,
gonna
which is
say, yeah.
always going to help. Yeah.
What do you say, Steve?
Well, we've got there is quite a little growth of one pocket over in Europe, but it isn't so much the like the WNT players, because as you to your point, Jeremy, they got their hands full, but there are some of them playing it. And funny thing over there, it's a young game. Like you could not have a senior one pocket tournament in Europe. There are no seniors that play it. But you know, it's like a 40-year-old or Alex Lely in early 50s. That's about the oldest you get over there. But it's really growing there. There's tournament in now. There have been tournaments in the Netherlands. We're having a 4th one in September, and every year it's grown. Went from 30 something, 40 something, 50 something. We'll hope to hit 60. There's 41 players already signed up, and the
Amen.
tournament is in September. And it includes, I think, the this year's European straight pool champion, Bongers.
Oh, Tobias. Yeah, yeah.
Tobias Bongers. Yeah.
Yeah. And Ken Salim is signed up. And besides, of course, you got Alex Lely and probably Nick Vandenberg. They've played in it before. Who knows who else? Joshua Filler said he might stop by, but, you know, he's got a busy schedule, and I understand if he's got some 9-ball, he's got to go there. But Germany has regular one pocket. Sweden is having their first, or just did, one or the other. Finland has had them. Norway's got a little one pocket action.
It's growing. It's
There were
growing. Sounds
2
like.
guys from Spain that came to Buffalo's this year. One of them, even Ivan Belmonte, played in the big event, and they both played in the
Yeah,
one ball one pocket, I
I'm
believe.
pretty sure I seen Ivan out at Hard Times, if I'm not mistaken, like within the last year or so.
Yeah, and his buddy Manuel, I can't remember his last name.
Is
Has
there any?
played. I think he's played the U.S. Open 9-ball before.
Is there anybody
an
that's
upset
like?
player.
Is there anybody you feel like can do what Josh did, Jeremy? You feel like that's maybe wasn't in the tournament, or maybe just somewhere on the back burner somewhere?
Uh, I don't know about that.
Well,
Well,
how about Mickey Krause?
well, I mean, he could.
Yeah,
I think. I mean, nothing against Mickey. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, there's a little gap there when it
Yeah.
comes to all around pool.
Oh yeah.
Mickey's a great rotation player and certainly can handle himself playing any game. And that's why I said I don't know about that. Like just
Yeah.
because Josh is just another one of those real special guys that it didn't take long for him to start to understand things like banking the ball and moving the cue ball and doing this and why that, and it's just he's just a very accelerated human that's super talented. That so I don't see that at the moment, Mike, right off the top of my brain. Now you might
Yeah.
throw a couple things out there that I might say, yeah, maybe, I guess, but I don't
And
know.
if you're talking about comparing the standard of Joshua Filler, that does make it pretty damn tough. That's a high
right.
bar.
No, and you're absolutely right, Steve. But like for a lot of years, these were some of the guys who we were hoping would come to Buffaloes. That we were
Yeah.
hoping we're gonna play this tournament because you wanted to kind of see, like, listen, you know what the upside is, but you're never gonna go and give him like the true credit until he goes and does something, which Josh, to his credit, did. I mean, he lived up to the hype and snapped off the whole place. But it's like I think about some of these guys where, and to Jeremy's point, I'm kind of in that same boat, like kind of thinking about it. I'd love to see some of these guys who we've seen play one pocket before, who maybe aren't known as traditional specialists. I'd love to see a guy like Levan or Carlo, or bring in more
Yeah.
Filipinos and
Yeah,
guys like that. Of
Chua
course,
maybe Chua, real talented, super talented kind of guy, right? But
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But it's hard because the one thing with Federer and Filler is so unique. It's like if I just take their banking ability in a vacuum, it's elite. If I just take their cue ball in a vacuum, it's elite. Plus the pocketing and it's like they got the perfect
Yeah.
storm. I don't think anybody's like that out there in the world like them, but man, I'd love to see some more blood in that water, man, because it made for a fun tournament. Like I'd love to see that Shane Evan matchup, but like 16 matches deep. You know what I mean? Where it's just
I
like,
think Kachi would be great at the game just because he's so keen tactically. Now it might take a little while, but and maybe a better way to answer your question on that is, for like say, let's think of next year's Buffaloes
yeah,
for a second. And if you said to me, okay, Jeremy, would you think a guy like a Mickey Krause, or maybe let's just pick one of those guys we just said, like a Chua, went and played? I would think a guy like Chip Compton might win. A real experienced one pocket player might get in groove and win before those two win. You know what I mean? Like someone
yep,
that's on the other side of the spectrum that's going to be a mover more, but still a young guy that can knock the ball in nice, something like that.
yeah.
That's how
Well,
I would think about it. That's how far Filler is and Federer and whatnot. So
Well, that's why I love like the styles of one pocket, because a guy like Chip would, really grind a shooter like a Chua or even a Kachi, or let's say Jeff DeLuna or whatever. You know what I mean? Where if you were to pick him in rotation, you'd bet the other way, right? But like in one pocket and the styles of it all, I feel like that'll suit him versus in those types of matchups. But that's where the beauty of the game is for me. That's where I love seeing the difference, especially at an elite level. Like seeing Shane be thrown into that mix was just awesome, and so
yeah.
it's an unbelievable tournament. Let me ask you boys this: Federer, Filler, and Shane versus the field next year. Who are you taking?
well, I mean, if Alex is there and Tony, I mean, Tony didn't finish second on accident, that's for sure. And
Yeah.
if Alex was there, I mean, I'd have to take the field. I think if
What do you
Alex
say,
is
you,
there.
Steve?
Yeah, because you got Alex and Tony in the field. I would too, because you also got Gomez and Lunda and
Yeah, look who's won
other players.
before, right? Justin Hall.
Yeah.
Let Justin Hall, get
Yeah.
himself. And that's where I mean about prepared and informed. That means a whole heck of
Yeah.
a lot, But if the
And
guys are in the right, mentally, I think they can win.
another player that we haven't actually mentioned his name at all tonight, but he could have gone into that top 10 list I went through, is Danny Smith. You just never know.
Big.
I mean, he's been a little bit out of the game for a couple of years, but the guy is super talented.
Wasn't
If
he in
he
the
comes
finals last
back,
year, Steve? Am I
what's that?
wrong? Wasn't he in the finals or semifinals last year?
Uh,
Uh,
he was in the semifinals of another tournament, another one pocket event
Yeah.
pretty recently.
he was in the
Uh,
final of one of the one pockets, but it wasn't Buffalo's, I don't think.
No.
no,
No.
yeah, but he's definitely still got it. I am really looking forward to next year and the fact that we had both Filler and Van Boning, and I am hoping that rubs off on some of the other players, as you mentioned, Mike, and maybe we'll see somebody else decide to get their feet wet over there because there's going to be a backer available for them. If a talent like Kachi wants to come over here and play one pocket at Buffalo's, somebody will step up and help him in. How about that?
I mean, like, listen, if you're telling me what the upside is, and you already know more or less what that range is going to be like because of the money in there, firing $2,000 at it, I'd swing at it. For that upside that you'd go and get on. I mean, he'd have like everything would have to work together, and you'd imagine he'd be there like on some kind of value, especially in terms of the Calcutta. But
Well,
yeah, the way that
he got
I
to
straight,
come in like Filler did a week early.
yeah.
Get at it.
But
But
he's one of the few special ones I think could adapt to the game quickly and start to have some results. I think Kachi's one of the ones that could do some things out there playing some one pocket. I don't know if we'll
but
ever see it though. So
by the
You
way,
don't think
over
you
in
don't
Europe, we really have uh, a fantastic advocate for one pocket in Alex Lely, and he knows every one of those players.
he
So
does.
you got to know that there's already a little whispering going on, and has been for a while. Whether they can make room for it in their schedule, yeah, that's the biggest if right there. Wouldn't you agree, Jeremy?
oh yeah, those are busy
They
guys.
got their plates full.
Do you feel like next year's event will be bigger than this year's?
Yeah, why not?
I'm
I
going to
mean,
say yes.
that's pretty much how he's had it trending. It'd be hard to bet against it, I would think. As long as the schedule isn't too conflicting with a lot of players and different things. It's the one thing that's a difficult task every year. It seems like in the pool world.
Well, he
You don't.
does his
Yeah.
scheduling. His is always the same time of year, but he has no control over, somebody else. I was very happy to read that Emily Matchroom Fraser she made a comment about that I thought was kind of positive about one pocket and challenge matches and that kind of thing. Sort of like a little bit of a nod to the money side of the action side of pool, which I was very pleased to hear coming from that perspective.
You got to give the tournament the respect it deserves, no matter, and like whether from the grind of it or the prize money of it or the level of talent that's there. And this is part of what I thought made this year so special, and there is plenty of room, I feel like, for I don't want to say improvement because that's the wrong word, but just growth, and whatever they've done out there, like, listen, you bring in it's that, to me, especially the action, all these things you hear about, it seems like it could be bigger than Derby when it's all said and done, or at least the way that's trending, because it can explode like that, and they've done a really great job as far as just growing that and really making it something special.
The crowd was big there this year too. I mean, there is no charge for admission, but if there was, you'd call it the gate, right? The gate was big, and but he's got that side too now, so there's so much square footage, people can move around. He spreads the tournament matches throughout until you get to the later rounds, and of course, it brings it a little more into the front. But that was another thing. There was no problem watching matches. You'd get some matches would get a little deep that if you didn't have a spot, you weren't going to get one. But by and large, it was always something to watch, and there were good crowds everywhere.
You got to have it. You got to have it for sure. I want to get you boys out of here on this later on this week. I'm getting Shane tomorrow at noon, and then Federer probably Thursday evening, maybe around the same time, 8, 9 o'clock. I want to get your picks on the big rematch, SVB versus Federer, a race to 120 in 10 ball. Steve, I want to start with you. Give me your winner and your eventual score.
Well, I'm going to try Gorsh this time, and I'm hoping that he has, I don't know, done a little running, or something to build up his stamina, because obviously he's got the gear to compete with Van Boning. He just needs the stamina, and I'm hoping another year he's a little stronger. If his back holds up, I like Federer.
Well, before Jeremy, you give me your pick. I want to talk about that for a second because it has been a year, right? But that stamina, at least from the eye test, and I brought this up to Jeremy before we went live. Federer looked a little out of gas at the end of that Buffalo's tournament, and so do you think that, or maybe you guys can shed some insight as far as what you feel like was, I don't want to say his downfall, but because he looked a little out of it in that
He
last
was
day.
sick, apparently. He was
Oh,
sick.
okay.
Yeah, like somebody said 102 fever. I mean,
oh, yikes.
Yeah, that's pretty serious.
Yeah.
That'll roll.
That will do it for sure. We saw Dennis go 2-0 one year, getting the flu like the day before the tournament started.
Yeah.
So, Double J, what's your prediction on the SVB Federer rematch?
I mean, I like SVB a little bit. He just doesn't get beat in those matches very often. I think he's going to be keying on that match and getting ready for that match, looking for a big summer coming up. Big money later in July overseas that Federer took down last year, and I think setting up maybe with like a 120, 110 victory. Not far off what they had last time. Now, I don't know if they've changed some of the dimensions of the match at all, as far as because they got pretty long hours on some of those days, and
Yeah.
I don't know if that was taken into consideration. So if that was the case, you got to take that into consideration and maybe put that a little more in Federer's favor. Because
100%.
Shane, once he gets to a certain point, he just doesn't get tired. It seems like, especially when it comes to rotation.
It's crazy.
It's really, really amazing.
It literally makes no sense, and we're gonna have more on this matchup in the next 2 weeks. But it literally makes no sense because it's like you would always go with the younger guy, especially like the guy who's the reigning world 9-ball champion amongst other list of accomplishments. But it's like it just goes the opposite way of thinking. Like Shane gears up from like 12 midnight to 2:30 in the morning every night. It's like he hits a different gear where Federer just kind of hits a wall. So. Yeah, like I said, we're going to have them on tomorrow. We'll have Shane on tomorrow, Federer on a little later on this week. Steve, I'd like to welcome you back whenever we have some more One Pocket to talk, hopefully more One Pocket action matches in the near future. I really appreciate your time. Congratulations again on getting inducted to the Hall of Fame. And Double J, I'd love to have you on again, especially heading into the World 9-ball Championships and talk more rotation with you as well, my man.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry for the technical stuff, guys, but it was a pleasure.
Yeah, for sure.
And Jeremy, it's an honor to participate in a conversation about One Pocket with you anytime.
Well, yeah, congrats again on that induction, Steve. And thanks again, Mike.
Yeah, thanks for keeping the game alive, boys. I want to talk more as much as we can. You guys have a good night. I got to go wrangle up these girls over here. They're driving me nuts on summer. We'll see you guys tomorrow, and thanks, everybody, for hanging out.